All right, welcome everybody to Behind the V-Day. I think this is episode number 6. I'm Ted Gerard, the program director for the athletic training program, and with us, as always, is Dr. Mercer, chair of kinesiology and nutrition sciences. And this week, we are very, very pleased to interview Dr. Emmanuel Ayim and learn a little bit more about him. How are you doing today, Emmanuel?
Excellent. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. Just made it home in time just for this. I had a nice cycle across town. The weather's beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so let's start out with a pretty simple question. What brought you to UNLV?
You know, it was such a great experience discovering UNLV. So let me backtrack. I was a master's student in Louisiana,
Okay.
at Grambling State University, where my dad is a professor. And I remember discussing with my department chair when it became clear to me that I should consider a doc program. I was actually taking a sport governance class. The second week of school, we had a paper to write about the 2004 Olympics. And I wrote a paper about the US women's national team and how they're going to perform. And I remember my professor saying, you know, the papers were very good, but there was one that stood out. And she said, if that person doesn't mind, she's going to read that paper to us. So she started reading, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's my paper. You know, embarrassed and everything. And after class, she pulled me over. She said, if this is any indication, you have what it takes to get a doctorate. So you should consider it. And that's the first time I was like, wow, I have what it takes to consider a doctorate. So I went to the department chair, and we talked about programs around the country. So we looked at Ohio State, Florida State, University of Texas, and UNLV. And I remember sending an email to each of the department chairs of those 4 schools. Guess the only school that responded to my email.
Oh, I guess it must have been UNLV.
Yes, it was UNLV. UNLV was the only one that responded. And with my dad, I was still pursuing the other schools. And he gave me a great piece of advice. He says, you need to go where you're wanted.
Yeah.
So that's how I decided to come to UNLV in 2006 to pursue a doctorate.
Wow, you know, that is so interesting. When I've never really told this story to many people, but when I originally came to Las Vegas, it was as a student, and I too was looking for different places, and I wrote letters. This is pre-email, by the way.
Right.
I wrote letters to a bunch of people, and the only person that wrote a handwritten letter back to me, or a typed letter that was personalized, was Dr. Brent Mangus, who was the athletic training program director way back then. Mm-hmm. And that was the same thing. Like, other people sent me like just form letters and you know, brochures and literature, but he took the time, and I'm like, okay, that's where I want to be.
Exactly.
And so it's really interesting you mentioned that, and I think it goes to show us, you know, when students do reach out and they're interested in our programs, how much personal attention does play a role. So I'm super glad you shared that story. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
Can you take us back even further? So you said you started with your story with the master's at UNLV. Talk us about bachelor's and how did you even end up at UNLV to begin with?
Oh, great. So I grew up in Texas. If you want to rewind even further back, I was born in West Africa. I was born in Cameroon. So my parents migrated to the US in the mid-1980s. I joined them in 1990. And I lived in Texas, went to middle school and high school, and played a lot of soccer. But my parents told me school was first. If you don't study, there'll be no soccer. So that was motivation enough for me to study hard, right? And I was very fortunate. I merited a soccer scholarship to play and study at the University of Dayton in Ohio. So I went there and I studied biology, and it was a great school. And I remember actually, you know, speaking of background, I did an internship with Procter & Gamble between my junior and senior year in Ohio. So I did it in Cincinnati. And after that internship, I had to be there at 7:30, and I had to do a repetitive task. You know, it's more mechanical engineering at the time. I did it till 5 o'clock every day. And I remember after the first week, I said, you know what? I got to take soccer a lot more seriously because I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I practiced really hard that summer, and I was fortunate. I ended up getting selected to the US under-20 national team, and then I got went to try it out with the Los Angeles Galaxy and the San Diego Flash. I made those teams, and I ended up graduating in 2000 and then moving to Southern California. I was training with the LA Galaxy, playing games with the San Diego Flash. Did that for about 3-4 years, but there's one thing that's distinct about my family. My family's had a huge influence on where I am today. And I think they might have coordinated their response, but every time I called my family when I was playing pro soccer to tell them about, oh, I had a great game, I scored goals, the only thing they ever said was, when are you going back to school?
Yeah.
All of them. So, and I'll say, guys, I had a great game. We scored 2 goals. We won. They're like, when are you going to do a master's? So eventually my dad brought out the trump card, basically is telling me, hey, I'll pay for your master's. You can come live with me. I'll feed you. All you have to worry about is studying, and you can even be a graduate assistant if they select you, and you can teach. And it was an offer too good to turn down. So I ended up moving to Louisiana, staying with my dad for 1.5 years, pursuing a master's, graduating, doing an internship in South Central Los Angeles. That was my big gift back to the community. This was a high school, a brand new high school, South Central Los Angeles. And everything that you can think of in terms of high school in South Central is true. I stopped probably a couple murders from happening in my class, one on the first day. I remember the principal introduced me to the class, and I was standing in front of the class. And as I started addressing the class, I looked, the principal had disappeared. So it was just me and the students. I looked in the back of the room, it was on the 3rd story. One student had another student by the feet and was dumping them headfirst from the 3rd story. I sprint to the back of the classroom, grab him, pull him back in. I didn't realize that they were both on rival gangs. So I had just inserted myself into a gang war. So going forward, I had to park underground at the school, or else my car would have been vandalized. But it was a great experience, the teaching. But what that taught me was that teaching is something that I really enjoy, but maybe not high school. You know, maybe college, where students actually want to be there and they're bought in. So I'm not spending 80% of the time doing classroom management. And then from there, that's how I ended up coming to UNLV in 2006.
Oh, wow.
Wow, this is why I love doing this, because I did not know all that. And that is really quite a pathway, Emmanuel, to get to UNLV.
Yeah.
All right, so if I gotta back up just a little bit. So so you're a Texan then, I guess. Is that
Yes.
what where in Texas were you?
College Station, Texas.
Oh,
My dad was the first African-American to graduate with a health education PhD at Texas A&M University.
yeah.
And my mom did her Bachelor of Science in Nursing at University of Texas, Austin. So it was a split household between the Aggies and the Longhorns. And if you know Texas,
Wow.
they don't get along.
Wow. That is amazing. So now that makes sense in terms of why they were always asking you when you were going back to school, even though you were exploring your dream.
Right.
And playing professional sports, which is, you know, a big dream of a lot of folks. So that's an interesting push back into academics that way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a little bit more about teaching. So what is it about teaching that you think you feel like it's your calling? What does it do for you?
You know, it's like coming alive for me. Okay, so when I came to UNLV, I was fortunate to be a doctoral GA. So I started teaching UNLV in 2006, and I really enjoyed it. But I was 27. You didn't know exactly what I was going to do for a career long term. So after graduating in 2009, that was the heart of the recession, and there were absolutely no jobs. So I was fortunate to find a role here at UNLV as an academic counselor. Right. With the CAEO, the TRIO program that we house here at UNLV. So I did that for about 6 years, but during that time, I was searching. I knew I enjoyed helping students, but I felt I wasn't living what I was designed to do. So I actually took a test, like a test that determines what gifts you have. And it turned out that my number one gift is teaching. So that was in 2013. As soon as I found that out, I started teaching as a PTI in the College of Education, teaching first-year seminars. And then the opportunity came here in our department, the kinesiology department in 2016. And that's when I came over. And to me, teaching is about coming alive. You know, even at home when my wife always has to tell me, you don't have to give me 2-3 different examples of what you're saying. I get it.
That is so funny.
Yeah, so we joke about that, but no, teaching is what I was designed to do. I've actually done it at multiple levels. I was actually a substitute teacher at one point for middle school. Again, I did my master's internship teaching high school in South Central LA, and I just love to change people, to have a student come in at the beginning of class having no idea what they want to do in terms of what their purpose is or what direction they want to take their life. And then by the end of the class, they're like, you know what, I have more clarity, and that's just intrinsically rewarding. And you guys are also professors, so you totally understand that.
So you obviously teach a very interesting subjects. And one of the things that you do is help students along with their path to decide, kind of where their passions are, to figure these things out. I always find it odd that we have so many students at UNLV that really don't know what they want to do or don't know what the options are. Did you find that kind of eye-opening when you started? And if so, I guess, how do you go about kind of helping them along the way?
That's a great question. It's definitely, we do have a sizable population that are not sure what they want to do, where they want to go. And so what I do, I always tell them, you have to try stuff, right? It's, you're not going to sit there and then miraculously, you're just going to discover what your career pathway is going to be, right? You have to try stuff. The analogy I tell them is like, if you go to the beach in Southern California, and you want to get in the water, what do you do first? You stick your little toe in the water to gauge the temperature, to see the water's usually cold in Southern California, but I tell them, try stuff. If you're interested in physical therapy, maybe you volunteer at a physical therapy clinic and just be around it and learn the jargon and be in that environment and see if that's something that's of interest to you. If you love personal training, maybe, go join a gym and, and apply to be a personal trainer, maybe shadow someone who's a seasoned personal trainer. I think, you can't sit and think and discover what you want to do, right? You have to try stuff. And that's, I have the singular pleasure, probably plural pleasure, other people also find it helpful to teach our internship courses. So that's precisely what we do in that course. We assign students to different internship sites throughout the city. And I love it. And I tell the students at the end of the semester, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to say, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm all in. I'm going to go with it. And I've discovered my pathway. That's great. But some students also say, you might discover, hey, this is definitely not what I want to do. And that's okay also, because better to find that out when you're still an undergrad than to graduate and move to a new city and start a whole new life and discover that that's something that you really don't enjoy.
I love that answer. It happens in our program too, where we have students that they decide part the way through that this is not what they want. And I've had students in my office crying because I feel like they're disappointing me. And I tell them, I couldn't be happier. You only invested 9 months in this and you realize this is not what I want to do. Great. Way better than 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you slogging through this. Like, I should have never done this. Like, I love that you said that. So I couldn't agree more.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it. So you mentioned internship, but maybe give a scope of the teaching that you do within the program.
Okay. So I have, again, the honor of teaching our first year students. So I teach Health Science 100, which is our first year seminar. And I teach Ken 424, which is personal and professional development in kinesiology. And I teach our combined 475, 490, which is seminar and internship in kinesiology. In our first year seminar class, we cover basically student success. Mm-hmm. And the big thing in that class that I try to get across to our students is that, number one, you have to believe that you can succeed. We'll be surprised at how many students sit in the class in their first year and totally convinced that they don't have what it takes to make it. And to me, that is so debilitating, right? And for me, is to try to change that mindset that if you have been admitted and you have an opportunity to have a seat here at UNLV, there's a good chance that you meet the intellectual threshold to succeed at UNLV. You just need to apply some work ethic and some good habits some good study habits, which is what I endeavor to teach them in our first year seminar class, and so that they can achieve their maximum success. In our personal and professional development class, it's basically giving them the soft skills, the leadership, teaching them about their personalities, teaching them about emotional intelligence, the other factors that will lead to success in the workforce, but also promotion to reach the highest potential that they're capable of. And then in an internship class, that's hands-on, right? That's hands-on, give them an opportunity to try, opportunity for 15, 16 weeks at an internship site, and to determine that, is that something they want to do for the long term or not?
Oh, I love that. And I really love the approach you're taking with having the mindset to be successful in learning, because you're right. A lot of students come into the program and they don't have that sense that they can do it. Mm-hmm. And giving them that encouragement to even have that mindset is so important. So what are the critical skills that you think the students leave your class with?
So there's a few things that I like our students to leave especially my first year seminar class with. Number one is to know thyself and to be thyself. I think knowing how you learn, knowing when you learn best, knowing your habits, knowing if you're a tendency to procrastinate, maybe you have a plan, get a planner and start using it on a regular basis instead of waiting the night before studying for exams. I teach them delayed gratification. This generation, if they log on to a social media site and it doesn't load in 3 seconds, they've moved on. We remember the time in the 90s when, to log onto the internet took minutes, right? And so delayed gratification, be patient. I teach them to run their own race. Yes, Unlv is vast. We have 30,000 plus students, but you have to understand and carve your own path, and that your race is a singular race. You might sit next to someone, they might seem like they're not paying attention, and you might be tempted to do that. But remember, when grades are given, they're given on a singular basis. They're not given on a plural basis. I teach them how to learn, right? Metacognitive learning strategies to be able to think about thinking. Are they more of a visual learner? Do they have more auditory? They're more kinesthetic type of learner. And ultimately, I'd like to teach them to finish what they start. Because we all know that finishing college is one of the best things any person can do for their life in terms of career trajectory, in terms of lifestyle that they want to lead. And we're working on our graduation rate. It's improving, but I tell them, please, there's actually a study that folks over 30, the number one regret of folks over 30 is education. You'd think spousal choice would be number one. You'd think career choice would be number one, but it's actually education. And I tell them that fact, and it really, when we're meeting in person, their eyes light up when I let them know that education, if you drop out of school, you will regret it. That's just what the statistics say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been big in working on retention, progression, and completion with our students, and so it's great to hear that. One, it is getting a bit better, but there are so many barriers that students have to overcome. And so I like this approach that you're taking with just trying to help them understand that they, to finish what they complete or what they start. That's a great approach. What has been some of the hardest questions you've gotten from your students in these classes? These classes are big life skills.
That in itself is a hard question.
Yeah, that's right. But you seem very prepared to be able to answer that question. That's awesome.
No, so the hardest question is probably when they ask, should they go to the seniors, or should they go to grad school? Should they go to professional school? Or should they join the workforce immediately after graduation? And what I like to tell them, that I can give you parameters depending on who you are, your principles, what you want out of life, but that's a decision that the faculty cannot make for them, because you have to decide which pathway you want to take based on who you are and the goals that you have for yourself. So I give them guidance, but I don't tell them you specifically need to do A, B, or C. I give them the options. I tell them, knowing who you are, which path do you think will be the most fulfilling, and also making the biggest impact on society, if that's something that you value.
Well, that's fabulous. All right, we want to switch it up a little bit here and get to know you a little bit more personally. So obviously you played a lot of soccer growing up, and from time to time I see you out on the soccer fields. So what's your role right now in soccer and in youth soccer? What are you doing with that?
Oh, soccer, man. I've had a long, happy relationship with soccer. It's the longest relationship I've ever had. And it is still going very strong. No, I still play probably once, if I'm lucky, twice a week. But my kids, both of my sons are competitive youth soccer players. In fact, my oldest son, Emmanuel II, he's 11. In the past month, he has gone from juggling 100 to 500.
Oh man!
Yeah. So he's catching that bug, and he's starting to internalize it. He came home the other day, and I told him, son, listen, you come home from school, your first move is to get a screen and sit down and play, Fortnite or whatever he's playing on a screen. And I tell him, listen, if you really want to be serious about soccer, you would come home, you would change clothes, you go to the backyard, you knock the ball for 15, 20 minutes, then you come and spend an hour on the screen and do what you need to do. That was the test. And he told me, Dad, here's my cell phone. And he handed me his cell phone. He says, don't give it to me for 2 weeks. I'm going to focus on soccer. I said, there we go. I think you get it. Mm-hmm. So my sons are deeply in the game. So I work with them. I let them train with their teams, and I'm there at their practices, and I just watch and I see where they're deficient. And then I fill in the blanks later on their off days. I take them to the park and I show them stuff, and that keeps me active also. And they love it. My daughter, she played last year during the pandemic, and then this year she wanted us to take a step back, but my fingers are crossed that she'll start playing again, Then I have a fourth kid who's 18 months, and so he already has 3 or 4 soccer balls around the house. So he has the liberty to kick it anytime he wants. And so no, soccer is a huge part of my life. I have my friendships. In fact, my current home, my realtor, I coached his son. So he was able to find us a good home in Green Valley. And, my friends, when I got married, my best man, my groomsmen were all teammates at one point or another in soccer. So it's been a very, very happy relationship. And I don't know how long it's going to continue, but I hope it continues forever.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So I assume, when you were playing a lot, you identified yourself as a soccer player.
Yes.
And then obviously you took academia really seriously and still do. But it's nice to see that you have not lost that identity, right? Because a lot of people, they play sports when they're young and then they move on and they lose that identity. But it appears that you've kept that identity, and I commend you for that.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, it's even, this, you guys get this, you guys do, triathlon. There's a body shape of a soccer player, which is quite different from a body shape of a football player. Mm-hmm. So I have friends, that have morphed their body shape into massive, bulky, and I take pride. I'm the same weight now as I was my sophomore year in college. Oh. And that was 23, 24 years ago. So yes, I do identify as a soccer player still. My wife jokes that, at one time I was coaching, he says, you go coach, you play, you train our sons, and then you come home and turn on soccer on TV. It's like, when does it rest? And I apologize to her. I said, I'm sorry, baby, but this is, I'll work on not watching as much soccer on TV. That I can relinquish, but playing and coaching and being involved in the game, that's just who I am.
Oh, I love it. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, but you really already answered it, is how does soccer, teaching, and parenting all intersect? And obviously they not only intersect, they overlap quite a bit.
They really do. It's all, I think, coaching is teaching on a sports field. Mm-hmm. You have to listen to who you're teaching. Are they absorbing? Are they making progress? And teaching is done in the classroom. It's more formal, but I think coaching and teaching go hand in hand. Yeah, and parenting, of course. The funny thing that I've learned about parenting is that growing up, I thought my parents knew everything. Mm-hmm. I thought they had it down and they knew exactly what they're doing. And what I'm learning as I'm a parent now, I don't think my parents quite had it all figured out as they presented it to us, because I don't have it all figured out as a parent, my kids sure think I do, So.
Oh man. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you, maybe this is going to be the hardest question. Your proudest moment in soccer, teaching, and parenting.
Wow.
Because I really hear this overlap in these 3 areas, and I'm just curious as to, if I put you on the spot and I say, what's your proudest moment in each of those?
In each of those, so proudest moment in soccer, teaching, and parenting. And soccer for me was getting to put on the U.S. national team jersey as an 18-year-old, because that was a dream from the time I was 11. And I worked so hard, countless hours. I remember in high school, my friends on Friday nights, my friends were going to parties. I was on the field. It's raining. I'm by myself, practicing in the rain, working on my skills. My friends would drive by and honk to try to startle me because they said, there goes Emmanuel practicing soccer again. So it all became worthwhile when I put on that U.S. national team crest. And I remember I had during that journey, I remember one time in a hotel room when I was on the regional team trying out for the national team. After a game, I was so emotional that I took tears from my eyes and I wrote on the mirror in the bathroom, USA. That's something that I wanted to accomplish. So when I got to put on the U.S. national team jersey, that it all came together.
That's wonderful.
That's my proudest moment in soccer.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, in teaching it was a few semesters ago here at Unlv. I had a student towards the end of the semester, and she came and said, you know what? I was dead set on dropping out of school and even giving up on school and even life. But she said, thank you for this class. Now I feel like I have a sense of purpose again. I'm motivated, and your class has just changed my life. And that's not something you can script. She didn't write in an email, so there's no record of it. It was just after class. And as soon as she said it, she walked away. She didn't even give me a chance for me to get to find out details. But those moments as a professor is why we do this, right? Changing a student's life, through just this platform that we have as professors here at UNLV. As parenting, wow, proudest moment as a parent. Honestly, every day is a proud moment as a parent. I learn about my kids every day, and just the ability, to have 4 healthy, intelligent enough, hardworking kids that we're trying to instill principles in. My 3rd son just got selected to the GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program. And my oldest son, he struggled with a little while. Now he's making all A's at Bob Miller Middle School. My daughter, she debriefs. When I pick them up from school, I ask them, what do you learn today? I've been doing that since they were in preschool, because I want to teach them to be able to recollect and rehash what they've gone through that day, so that it's just not discarded. And I give them it's an open-ended question. They can take 10 seconds or they can take 3 minutes to answer the question. And when I do that, I really get to know my kids and see how they're learning. So that's a vague answer. We have what we call in our household FPM. That's family meeting, family prayer meeting. Every Wednesday, we bundle up as a group and we talk about how our past week has been. We talk about what we want for the future. We talk about mistakes that we made and how we can learn. And to me, that's a proud moment, just to be a leader of my family and just try to give them principles, because at the end of the day, at some point, you guys know this better than I do, they're going to be out of the nest. And I only hope that you've instilled them with the principles that they can take on and be successful and good human beings.
I love it. I mean, I can just see how these proud moments really overlap quite a bit. I mean, you really are, teaching about believing in yourself and achieving, national recognition in soccer, and obviously with teaching and even parenting. And that's such a core value of yours. It's really neat to see that come out in each of these.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Dr. Ayim, thank you so much for spending the half hour with us and for us getting to know you a little bit better. And I, for one, feel great about this interview. This was so fabulous. I learned so much about you. You've actually inspired me a little bit along the way, to believe it or not. So thank you very much for your time. Dr. Mercer, thank you very much for your time. This was a great interview.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. The feelings is reciprocal. I also, look up to you guys, and it's great to be able to chat and get to talk on a different platform.
Awesome. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Have a great day.
You also.
Okay.